Perfect. All right. Thank you all for joining us on this coffee talk. I see some new faces, many returning faces. Glad to have this opportunity to connect as a community on a kind of dreary Monday morning post-Halloween. So real good to get started with the energy. All right, for those of you who don't know, I'm Katie Hepner. I'm the director of the Economic Alliance. I've been co-hosting these bi-weekly coffee talks since March 2020, which time has gone by really fast and really slow. I feel like we're in a weird space-time continuum here, but happy to have so many of you returning for these Monday connections. A couple changes in our lineup today. Dave Endicott from CLC Staples was originally going to join us and talk about the meat cutting and agronomy program. He was unable to attend. Luckily, the president of CLC, Hara, is going to say a few words about meat cutting and possibly agronomy. Who knows? And then Lillian, our amazing Lead for Minnesota fellow, is going to just go over what Lead for Minnesota is. I know she had introduced herself briefly a few talks ago, but for anything like me, you always need a reminder on what's going on. So without further ado, Hara.
Hi, Katie. Hi, everybody. My name is Hara Charlier. I'm really privileged to serve as president here at Central Lakes College. And Katie, I think these coffee talks are a great idea. I didn't know about them, or I would have joined you more often. So we appreciate your interest in everything in our community, and all of you do so much incredible work in the community. And I think most of you know that I'm not from this area. I've been here for 5 years. I now consider myself Minnesotan. I do, and we're really proud to live here because of the grassroots efforts to make our community strong and vital. And boy, have we seen that over the past couple of years. So Katie, thanks for providing a vehicle to do that. So I won't take up a ton of time. We just want to make sure that you're in the loop about everything happening at CLC. Particularly, I understand that you're interested in meat cutting and agronomy. And I know there are some friends of CLC here, including Representative Poston, who are happy to weigh in as well. But I'll just tell you that we have a plan. Every year we go through an analysis of our academic programs to make certain that they're as strong as they possibly can be. And we look at things like enrollment, of course, but we look at graduation rates, we look at placement rates, and then we look for gaps in our communities to make certain that we don't have holes, right? I mean, we want to make sure that every single program at CLC is funneling jobs right into this community. And that's what we want to do. And that's the beauty of a community college. So, you know, there are some that we know are always out there, and there are some that kind of surprise you. And I have to tell you that meat cutting and butchery has been a bit of a surprise. I'm not going to lie. But when I wonder about how it all happened, I also take comfort knowing the process works, because part of the process is reaching out to the community to say, where are the needs? And most of the time, we're pretty confident that we know where those are. Several years ago, a question came up about meat cutting and butchery in our area, particularly in small rural areas. Often it's small meat cutters and butchers that are really tapped for personnel, for talent, to make certain that service is available in our small communities. So it's been a cornerstone, I think, of rural America for a long, long time, but kind of flying under the radar. For the past few years, we've heard from butchers and meat cutters that have said, look, I can't find people to come into my field. I don't want to close, but I'm getting ready to retire, and there's no one who's interested in taking my business. And when things like that happen, we all start to worry about the vitality of our community. So that was our first foray into meat cutting and butchery, to figure out how we can help provide a pipeline into those, to help to support those shops. And then, of course, COVID came. And then everybody started talking about meat cutting, because the backlog to have animals processed became so long. In many places, we're still out a year, that we realized this is not just a problem in rural economies. This is a problem across the state and the nation. In North America, we're told there are 7 programs that focus on meat cutting and butchery. 7, yes, Katie, I see your eyebrows going up. 7. And it's interesting because many people assume in higher education, you build a program and they will come. Well, that is not the case, right? You can't just build a program and say, hey, come be a butcher. I mean, it just doesn't work that way. It's partnerships to make sure that we're identifying students and we're partnering on equipment. And so we knew that we were very interested in developing a program, but it wouldn't work unless we had great partnerships. So for the past about year, our dean, Dave Endicott, who I know you'll meet at some point, unless he's been here before, a real go-getter, has been meeting with everyone with even a toe in meat cutting and butchery, from the farmers union to the grocers union to local shops, to figure out what really is needed. And the support has been pretty incredible, to be honest with you. So I'm happy to tell you that beginning next fall, CLC will develop a 16 credit certificate, because we don't need a degree and it needs to be quick, in meat cutting and butchery. And it's those partners that helped us to understand that we're not talking about just meat cutting. That's really not where the problem is. You can buy, there are many programs, you buy big boxes of meat and you cut them into the different cuts, right? That's it. No, the need is at slaughter all the way through to processing. So our program in 16 weeks will meet those needs. We will not have a slaughter plant or a kill floor on our campuses. Rather, in the spirit of partnership, we know that the need for processing is far broader than the educational institutions. It is local farmers. So we've partnered with the Minnesota Department of Agriculture. And again, thanks to Representative Poston for being part of that, helping us make that happen, so that there's some funds to help us develop a program, but also to develop a mobile processing unit, a unit that will be outfitted and can move around our area and go to farms when farmers have animals to be processed, help that happen right on the farm. And then a few times a year, it will come to Central Lakes College so that our students can get the experience on the slaughter end of things. And then that mobile unit keeps moving. So we're really excited about this. I have to tell you, it will start in the fall. It is now fully approved. And yeah, that's right, Katie, we're very excited about it. And what I'm most excited about is our partners have said, we will help find you students. Because again, this is not a billboard, come be a butcher. Students are not like, oh yeah, that's a great idea. That's not going to work. Instead, it's people who know students in the area who have talent and interest and potential. This is a great job. I have to tell you that it is not unusual that the starting salary is about $25 an hour for a butcher. It is a union position. People can make a really powerful living wage. And by working with those local partners, we're going to make sure that we build a pipeline into this really important field. Ultimately, CLC envisions kind of a farm to table type of approach. We have a 2,000-acre farm, that. And we also have a culinary program that is budding. So we envision one day down the road, we'll have farm to table, and meat cutting and butchery is going to be a big part of that. I'm told there'll be some sausage at one end of that, which is a good thing. And we are super excited. This is going to be located on the Staples campus because we already have an approved kitchen there. And I'm very excited that we are fortunate to have the interest of some of our federal legislators as well. And we are in the line of both the House and the Senate now for community funding resources to help us outfit so that we have amazing equipment that is necessary for meat cutting and butchery. So we've got our fingers crossed that actually happens, but if it doesn't, we're still doing this, I promise you. So that is the meat cutting story. And I will then tell you too that as part of CLC has roots in agriculture. I mentioned in the Staples campus, we farm 2,000 acres and do a lot of research and demonstration. And we have programs in horticulture, natural resources, now meat cutting and butchery, agriculture science, and animal science. But we know that we need something in agronomy. So agronomy is coming. Again, lots and lots of jobs in the field with terrific partners. That curriculum is currently being developed. I think it will be delayed a little bit longer than next fall. I'm not sure we'll get a next fall start, but that is still our hope. It's not as solid yet as meat cutting, but it is coming. So our entire focus is to build out the agriculture offerings on the Staples campus to capitalize on that great farm we have and do things that are absolutely aligned with the area that we serve. So that's a little snapshot. Katie, I'm happy to answer questions.
Yeah. Lou, you have one right away.
Yeah, I do. Hi, Hara. This is Lou from the Chamber of Commerce in Long Prairie. We've met before. I just had a question about, will you be working, or one of your partners, is it Long Prairie Packing, or have they voiced interest at all?
They absolutely have. So we're in the process now of putting together an advisory committee, but yes, we reached out to Long Prairie Packing as well as everyone else when we first started looking at this program. So yes, they're very interested in helping us build the pipeline, very supportive of the project, and will be invited to be on our advisory committee. So thanks, Lou.
Any other questions? Going once.
Posted.
I just will chime in real quick. I'm not sure that I can say anything more than Hara has already said, but you can certainly feel the enthusiasm for this program. We're all very excited about it. There's certainly a big need for meat cutters, like there are for a lot of other professions. And I also hope that this will spawn some entrepreneurs to go into that meat cutting business in smaller towns in greater Minnesota. It wasn't too long ago that most small towns had a butcher shop. And, we hope we can get back there through these kinds of programs. And, again, I hope we can spawn some entrepreneurs that will take those positions or take those businesses of people that are going to retire or open new ones. And, I think this is the road to go down to get to that. But it's an exciting program. The mobile program is really exciting. We currently have a mobile program out there for poultry, and that is doing super well. So I think this will be a great addition to Central Lakes College and for our area. Thank you, Hara.
Thank you. We appreciate your support, Representative Poston. And it is absolutely true that if Dave Endicott were here, he will have told you that a couple of years ago, we said, there's this meat cutting thing out there. I'm not sure that there's enough there for a program. And he would probably say to you, they thought it was going to die. But the truth of the matter is that the problem, the need is far deeper and wider than any of us realized. And because of the entrepreneurship part of this program will have an entrepreneurship component because we need it to serve people who want to go into so many different sectors of meat cutting, including those who want to start their own businesses or take over businesses. And we think that interest is growing even more now than 10 years ago because of the local foods movement, right? So we're really excited about it. It's absolutely true. And we can't wait. So help us get some students. Lou, I saw that you unmuted there for a moment.
Yes, I'm just thinking of Browerville and Konecko's. Are you reaching out to little places too? Because I know he just purchased that place. And so I'm really happy that he decided to move forward with that. But I'm sure he's looking at the long run too. He's gone to some of Rick Utek's succession plan meetings to see where it's going to lead. And of course, you have to have students that'll take it on, take up the reins and go with it. So
that's right. And I don't have the list of it, all of the partners, but my assumption is we talked about Browerville. Okay. What I would tell you is that sometimes the littler, even smaller, right, are really hard to find. And we've been warned that you've got to find the small butcher shop. So if you have names that we may have missed, I promise you, if Dave were here, he'd come up with the whole list for you, because our goal is that it really is a very comprehensive list. But if you have names, please forward them to us, and we'll make sure to include them. A program like this will not be successful. It will not be unless there are people in small towns that identify a student and say, hey, you know what? Have you ever thought about meat cutting and butchery? I think you'd be great. I mean, that's what it will take to get students to come into a program like this. And we promise to give them a great experience. And we're working on some cutting edge, very great technology. So they'll be shocked at what type of equipment is used in this field. So great idea, Lou. Thank you. Bring those names forward. We'll be happy to have them.
I'm just thinking, because I go there and he's like, after deer season, he's like, oh my goodness, you know.
Yeah.
So, and there are kids that love to do that with their parents, you know, so that might lead to something like that. So thank you very much.
They don't know that this is a $25 an hour job. I mean, there's a career here. And it's the story with technical education in general. People in our society are not always aware of how powerful and technical education is in our communities, and to increase the quality of life of a family. And we're working really hard to tell that story. And this is just the newest example of that. So help us tell the story. Thank you so very much. I really appreciate it.
Any other questions for Hara?
Hara, this is Steph Drange. I just have one.
Steph, I think you just muted for some weird reason.
Oh, am I unmuted now?
Yep.
Sorry, I think I had a very frantic finger because it hit it twice. The certificate, I just have a question about working with high school students. There's quite a few of us in local high schools now and regional high schools. I'm assuming that certificate, you'll need a high school diploma to take those courses. And 16 credits would be one semester. So I'm also assuming that it would be a full-time thing for one semester.
So both of those assumptions are fair. There may be opportunities to do some articulation or kind of dovetailing with students as they're finishing up with high school. Okay. So that is certainly possible, although we haven't not delved into that yet at this stage. I think if there are opportunities, we should capitalize on them. Absolutely.
I was going to say, we'd love to be part of that conversation and capitalize on that. It came right to the top. I'm taking notes because I'm in the Staples Motley High School.
I agree with you. This is
as an ABE director, I had 2 people in the last 5 years say, how can I be trained as a meat cutter? So I was like, oh, they're going to do this. This is exciting.
Great.
And
it is great.
It is. So I just wanted to make sure that we could work in partnership, and if there was room for that, or how we needed to market it to students who are currently in high school and will be done in a year or 2 years.
Absolutely. And I think once we are outfitted, coming to visit the site, the lab would be really powerful, again, to dispel some of those myths about what this is and what this is not. So yeah, we would love to partner with you. And then your question about 16 credits will start out as a full-time certificate. But as we build our student base, there is no reason that we couldn't look at this being more evening or staggered so students could work. We have to start somewhere, but yeah, I think in order to meet the need, we're going to have to, as we always do, think about who are the students that we're trying to serve. Many of our students have to work, many of them. So we have a new Learn and Earn program, and this program isn't part of it yet, but it could be, where we actually have businesses that sponsor students. They give them jobs. They also get to go to school, and they get a scholarship. So our foundation, Katie knows about that. She's on our foundation, has helped us to develop that. And this is a perfect field for that, right? Because it allows you to have this tight relationship with a business. You have to demonstrate that you're going to be a really powerful addition to that business. And often those turn into full-time jobs. So yes, let's talk for sure, Steph. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. I just wanted to.
Sounds great.
Yeah.
Lou.
Sorry. Like if we're hoping to plan an in-person career fair in Long Prairie, will you be ready by the spring to talk about that, or is that gonna be later?
Well, Lou, we're always ready to talk. I mean, come on. We can talk anytime. So we'll definitely be ready to talk, but I will tell you that the program will not be set up and operational until fall. But we start registering for fall classes. You know, we're starting now. So
you always come to our career fair. Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll be absolutely ready to talk now that we're fully approved. We're ready to go. So you just let us know where to be and we'll be there.
Okay. I'll get John on you.
Thanks to Katie for the time. I really appreciate it. Again, appreciate all that you all do to strengthen our community. Makes it a privilege to live here and work here. Very grateful.
Thank you so much for joining us. I've known that you guys were developing this program for a while, and then when it's all kind of gelled together, I wanted to have someone come and talk about it, simply because it's such a great example of seeing a direct workforce need and addressing it. And it's kind of rare, even though it's unfortunate, to see such clean, even though behind the scenes, I'm sure how the sausage is made is a little messy. But, you see a need in the community, you work with employers, and you do it. And that's inspiring to see and really motivating. And, as an economic development professional, there's nothing I love more.
Yeah, nothing we love more either. And the partnerships have been just amazing. So thank you all very, very much. Katie, do you mind if I could stick around, just listen for a little bit longer? I can't stay the whole time, but do you mind? I'd love to hear all the other good things happening.
Yes, please join us.
Thank
All
you. If you have
right.
any questions, reach out. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Hara. All right. So Representative Poston, do you have any updates for us?
I just have a very brief update this morning, Katie, but before I talk about that, I just want to tell you that you, Eric, and Hank won the Halloween contest yesterday for sure. And if any of you have not seen that and are friends of Katie on Facebook, take a look at it. It's awesome.
Thank you. Thank you very much. For those of you who don't know, we dressed our son up as a mouse and turned his wagon into a mouse trap, which is very cute, but also we've been told very grim. We didn't think about how grim it looked trapping him. But happy Halloween and thanks.
It was awesome.
Talk
Anyway.
about meat processing. Oh, no.
It was awesome, Katie. Anyway, I'll just real brief this morning. I've been working on getting ready to go back into special session because we want to get this drought relief taken care of, and we want to get the frontline workers taken care of. But it looks like that bipartisan, bicameral committee is not going to come to an agreement. And I'm really thinking we probably are not going to have a special session now. We will just take it up when we go into our regular policy session in 2022 in the end of January. So I think that's a shame because the farmers need that money for drought relief and they need it now. And the frontline workers, the $250 million really should have been distributed by now. And they just can't come to an agreement. And you've probably seen that in the news a little bit. The other thing that I'm working on right now is broadband, because that's so important to greater Minnesota. And I've been spending a bit of time paying attention to the federal bill for infrastructure that may or may not pass. And it keeps changing constantly. I'm a little disappointed to tell you today that the broadband money in that bill is now at $65 billion. A week ago, it was at $100 billion. So as they're cutting that bill down to make it palatable for all lawmakers that are involved, broadband has taken a bit of a hit. And so I'm advocating with our federal our congressmen and senators, to really look at that number and more or less kind of stop it. We need that money in America, especially in greater America. Greater Minnesota needs it desperately, as you all know. And I will tell you, I'm going to be one of the big advocates for it. Our federal folks are all advocates for it. And we know that when that money does finally get appropriated, that what we need to be is the squeaky wheel to make sure that we get our share of that money. So those are really the things that I'm working on right now. We're in the interim, so there isn't a lot happening. Other than that, we're not having committee meetings. We're not having caucus meetings. We're kind of taking a little bit of a break. because it seems like we've been in session now for about 2 years. So I don't have a lot to talk about today, Katie, except that, but I would be happy to answer any questions if someone has one.
Thank you so, go ahead, Lou. Go
Sorry,
ahead.
sorry. Are you going to be at the meeting tonight with Rick Utek?
It is the meet that you're talking about, the meeting in Browerville?
Yes.
Yes, I will.
Okay, good. See you there.
Yep, see you there.
Any other questions for Representative Poston? All right, seeing none, thank you so much for joining us again, and enjoy your session free time. You know, because probably as soon as 22 hits, you're not going to have much free time. So get in while you're relaxing now.
Thanks, Katie.
All right, Dean, what's going on with the Wadena Development Authority?
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us. We've got quite a few things going on over here. Some not so good. Last week we had a fire in a building downtown, and 7 apartments in the upper level of this building were damaged to from smoke damage to charred. The electrical system is completely wiped out, and that affects 4 commercial spaces on the street level. And so I've been working with those folks. Housing is already in tight demand here, and working with those folks to try to find housing for the 7 parties that were dislocated from due to the fire. And some of the commercial the stores on the main floor, main level, suffered damage and now are closed because there's no power into the building. And so just working with those folks to try to come up with solutions to find a temporary location or whatever they can, because I think it's going to be quite a time factor here to get these spaces usable again. And with Christmas shopping just around the corner in full swing, it's important that these retailers are able to be open somewhere, somehow. So working with those folks, the Development Authority and the Wadena Housing and Redevelopment Authority are working with the school district again this year to build a community home. And so what that involves is the students in the construction trades class are working on building this home. Some aspects are contracted out, such as the wiring, the plumbing, but the students get a chance to work with those contractors also side by side, running wire, putting in plumbing, and it's really a great. It's kind of like the meat processing or the meat cutters program. It gives these students an opportunity to see and actually do different types of construction trades to see if that's something that they're interested in pursuing as a career option. So it's a great program. It adds a new house. I think we're going to be doing this every other year. So it adds 1 new home to the community every other year. And so it is a good program. Working on our small cities grant, trying to get again contractors. Everybody is so busy, and our small cities grant is underway. We've got a few projects that are done or nearing completion, and others that we just are struggling to get contractor bids. So just working on that, doing some additional research on the targeted community capital grant program with deed. I think, as we've got the new hospital under construction, and possibly we've had some conversations with Joel, who's on the call, regarding certain services and things that could potentially be added if we could be awarded this grant. And I'll let Joel expand on that if he chooses to do so. But working on trying to find additional programs to help offset cost, and we're working on a housing development project. And so we're looking at doing infrastructure in another portion of a plat that was a huge plat, but it's been developed so far in 4 different sections, adding infrastructure to 20 or 30 lots and streets and such. So we're looking at working on that again, adding to another section of that, developing it, and so yeah, fiber. Oh, and we've got this huge. The whole town is being installed with fiber to the home and business. Arvig, Charter, a couple of different companies are running fiber throughout Wadena, and that they're wrapping that up, trying to get that done before the ground freezes. So that's another big project going on. And a lot of, and still working with businesses looking to start up or expand. So a lot of things happening. I'd be happy to answer any questions if anyone has anything.
You have a lot of very good things going on, Dean, and best of luck working with those, those affected by the fire that happened.
Thank you.
If there's any way that I can help, please reach out.
Okay, I will do, Katie. Thank you.
Yep. Any questions for Dean? All right, keep up the good fight, Dean.
Will do.
Next, Joel, thank you for joining us from Tri-County Healthcare. Happy to have you.
Thank you, Katie. My apologies, I've been unable to attend in the last just a few weeks as you got moving on. It's just been a lot on the schedule. And Katie, regarding Halloween, at least yours was a perception of the grim. My 1.5-year-old grandson stumbled and knocked his forehead to the point that he had to spend 2.5 hours in the ER last night. So it could have been worse. So it's his Halloween to remember. So first, kind of the mission critical work, COVID update. And if it's okay, Katie, I'm going to share my screen and show
Joel,
those.
how is he? You left us hanging.
Oh, he's fine. I mean, I think
good.
it was able to be taken care of with the with glue instead of staples, but he's going to have a big knob in his head, and he's got a pretty good gash there.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry about that. So hopefully you're seeing a graph. It says the Joint Commission at the top. Katie, thank you. This is the case rate per 10,000 for the 3 counties that we monitor: Wadena, Todd, Otter Tail, and then the state. Even though there's good news here from the standpoint that we appear to have seen our peak, and it is coming down. The tough news here is still at these numbers: 142 for Wadena, 123 for Todd, 92 for Otter Tail, are still very, very high. For reference, last year when the schools through MDE had like remote learning and hybrid learning, and that 50 was the top of their scale. So really at 50, based on other mitigating factors, is when they should have been full remote learning. So you see we're still quite high. I'm going to share another graph as well. that indicates the level of activity that we're seeing around the state. This graph shows the number of statewide hospitalized COVID patients. It looks relatively flat, but it only goes back to September 28th. So these numbers are substantially increased from where we were. You see it's a flat curve. It's not coming down, typically because there is anywhere from a 2 to 5 or 6 week lag on hospitalization data from the prevalence of the disease. So as the disease is tailing off, we expect to see these numbers come down, but we still expect to be in this for maybe as much as another month. And in this is the idea that we are very, very busy in all the hospitals around the state, around the region. A significant number here is this orange versus the purple dot that you can see behind it. It was back a little more than a month ago that the orange crossed the purple, which is significant, and that orange represents the number of COVID patients being hospitalized in our rural hospitals. In the first few waves of this, most of that activity was happening in the regional and urban centers because they had the capacity. They stood up extra units, they hired extra staffing, whatever. Now they are unable to do that, mostly because the staffing in healthcare is so critical right now. The fact that we are seeing a lot of those patients here, married with the idea that we have a lot of activity in all other types of disease categories as well, injuries, illnesses, all of this. Tri-County, for example, we are typically running anywhere from 2 to 3 times our average inpatient census. Typically we have 7. It has not been unusual to be in the 14 to 20 range, which we can do in short spurts, but for extended weeks that we've now been doing it and really coming on now to pushing 2 months, it's very stressful for staff. We have seen staff leave the healthcare industry because of the stress over the last 20 months. It is impacting care. We are keeping patients for non-COVID type activities because there is not a place to send them. The best case, for example, if you've got a cardiac situation, is to get you to St. Cloud, typically as our landing destination, or other centers who might have a cath lab handy, those sorts of things. But we, in many cases, cannot transfer those patients for many, many hours or sometimes multiple days. We've also seen an exacerbation of behavioral health issues. And of course, it's already on top of a very tough situation. Pre-COVID, it's gotten that much worse. So the stress on the health system these days is tremendous, and we're not through it yet. We certainly hope and believe that by the time we get to Thanksgiving, we'll see some relief on this, but we'll just have to continue to see how all that goes. So we expect other waves in the future. We don't think we're done with this. We would love to get to a point to say that COVID is just another disease that we'll have to manage like everything else. I hate to say this, and if I don't want this to enter the political realm, but if we don't see some improvement in our vaccination status, getting beyond the 50-60% that we have, I don't think we're going to get there. We'll continue to see these waves. We also are doing a lot of antibody infusion, the monoclonal antibodies infusion, which is a very good therapy for this. It is very limited. So my advice is, if you believe you've got something that are COVID-like symptoms, get tested, because if you do have COVID, these will help, but there is a limited window on when you're actually eligible to get them. If you get too sick, you're not eligible. If you wait too long, you're not eligible. We are doing anywhere from 1 to 2 dozen of these when we open our unit up, which right now is 3 days a week. We are caring for patients from all over the countryside, as well as folks coming from even the Twin Cities for this, because there are so many restrictions on it in the Twin Cities. So that's what's going on with COVID. I also, Dean mentioned our project. Project is going great. I'm going to also share screen here, if I can, Katie. We have the fixed cameras that our contractor has set up out on the project. They are on our website if you ever want to go look at it. So I'm going to actually drill in and show you a few things here. This is a view of our project from the southwest. So think if you were hovering above Highway 10, looking at this from the southwest. I think of our building, if you were looking at it straight from the south, as a clock in terms of how they're managing construction. So this area right here, if you think of that as 12 o'clock, we're looking at it from about 7:30. The way that they're constructing this project is they're going clockwise around the building. So there are multiple trades doing multiple things all of the time. So they start back in this major core of the building, which is all of our mechanical equipment, the heavy concrete of loading dock, that sort of things, and they move around clockwise, which is through our surgery area, our inpatient unit up here. Around 4 o'clock is our ER. As they get to 6 o'clock, we're at the main entrance, and then coming further around is our clinic space. You'll notice that these are footings. So the footings are now 100% complete all the way around the building. They have ceiling and roof structure, working on insulation, waterproofing around. I'll show you another photo here in a minute. Obviously structural steel. And then in the recesses of the building, they are already starting the slab on grade cores. So again, there are lots of things happening at one time. The other photo is a similar fixed camera. This is from the opposite direction. So this is from the northeast, looking southwest. So again, this is about 2 o'clock on our clock. So here's that major core area as they come around. Again, the surgery area here. These windows represent our inpatient rooms. These will be a glass on 3 sides. So think a bay window concept. Each one of these represents 2 rooms. So this is what gets split into this. The green and gray represent different types of air and water sealants or vapor barriers. This area will be a glassed-in family lounge off our inpatient unit. And you can actually see some of the finished masonry material back here. That is what the fair share of the building will look like, certainly around the back side and some of the side. So overall, the project is proceeding right on schedule. We've been blessed in one respect. We know we're in a drought, so that's not good, but it certainly has helped the construction folks stay going without many rain delays. So that's been helpful. The budget is we're right on budget right now, so no major surprises there. Working closely with Dave Evans and all of the folks at the city regarding the infrastructure project of water and sewer that's being extended out to the site. Also working closely with Ryan Auden, who is leading the road realignment work for 11th Street, or what I think will be County 92 in the future. Otter Tail County is involved in that, and MnDOT. So, of course, John, again, we thank you for your support on the bonding bills funds. We've got a Transportation and Economic Development grant with MnDOT in application right now that Ryan has processed for us. So that's going well. And then, as Dean said, simultaneous to this, we are also doing our strategic plan work for our future as we get the building open, which is slated for early April of 2023. Also for reference, the building will be fully constructed and enclosed by the 1st of this year. So it's surprising to think it's going to go that fast, but that is the projection right now. And then the next year will be all of the interior work. They will actually turn the building over for starting the inspections and our mobilization process on the 1st of 2023. So that's going well. Back to our strategic plan, there are a number of things we're working on that would bring some expanded services and even new services to this campus. At this point, still fairly proprietary and still fairly preliminary in a lot of senses, but we do expect that we will see staff growth and program growth in this building, working through that with some other efforts. So again, for the most part, everything with the project is going very well. That's my update, Katie. Happy to answer any questions anybody's got.
If I can ask a question or two, Katie. Joel, thank you for that update. It's fantastic to see that project moving along as quickly as it is. Are you going to need how many more healthcare people are you going to need in that facility than you currently have? And is that going to be a real job to fill those positions?
Right now, the projections are that in our first 5 years, we would expect to add 48 new positions, roughly 36 full-time equivalents as part of this project. So some of that is organic growth, some of it again is new program growth as we look to enhance what we're doing in terms that this building will allow us to do in many cases that our present building doesn't. The difficulty in filling those, we believe, is going to be great. Already there are a number of specialties within our organization and healthcare in general that are very difficult. Lab has been in a national shortage for a few years already, and that's only getting worse. Nursing is another one where COVID has had a pretty profound impact on this because so many of the training programs had to be curtailed so significantly in the early days of COVID that I think we lost some potential candidates in that. The other exacerbating factor here is the vaccine mandate that we are still awaiting details and guidance from the feds. Or quite honestly, maybe in some cases, what will have to be self-imposed mandates that many of the healthcare systems and in the state and country are doing. And quite honestly, a fair amount of pressure on us to follow suit, even if there's not a federal mandate, is driving folks out of healthcare. And I think that there is a potential black swan event coming, a disruptive change to healthcare that is not something that is going to be corrected in a few months by just starting to post more jobs and trying to hire. I think my fear, John, is that healthcare right now, because of what we've been through the last 20 months, is not necessarily a highly attractive field for our high school juniors and seniors to be thinking about. And that's a major concern.
Yeah. Thank you, Joel. One other just a quick question. In your strategic plan, are you thinking about what you're going to do with the existing hospital yet? Have you got any plans for that?
So of our roughly 125,000 square feet here, we're going to be using about a third of it for our own folks. So most of this building is clinical in nature, or patient care, direct patient care. There is very little support space at, because so much of our business office, health information technology, marketing, human resources, administrative staff are staying in the present building. Two reasons. One, they can. We've proven, if nothing else, in COVID that remote work worked just fine. Secondly, we just couldn't afford to build all that square footage at this point in time. There are long-term plans to maybe create that administrative and support space, but it's not in this first 5-year or so window. We are having some conversations about the potential reuse of the Wesley building, one very specific thing there. And again, I've been in touch with both Dean and Katie to, hey, keep your ears to the ground as we get closer. There will be potentially business incubation and rentable space in our main campus. If the thing we're working on in Wesley building doesn't work out, there's 30,000 square feet there. And we've got roughly, let's say, about 4,000 square feet of our rehab building. So we've got things kind of cooking on all of them from our own perspective, but certainly there will be some sort of leasable space or maybe even purchasable space or land available as part of this.
Thank you, Joel. Keep up the great work, buddy.
Thank you, John.
Any other questions for Joel? All right, hearing none, thank you so much for joining us today. I know you have a really tight and busy schedule with COVID and construction going on at the same time, but really appreciate these critical updates.
Glad to help. I'm glad to be here. It's important.
All right, well, we're coming up on time. I just want to give a little space. Does anyone here have any updates from their organizations that they'd like to share? Feel free to unmute yourself. All right, I'll assume that there are no more updates to share. Thank you so much for joining us today. Our next talk is scheduled for November 15th. I am really excited for this talk. We have a researcher who will be joining us from the University of Minnesota Extension to talk about supply chains. And I don't know if you're like me, but I can't have a conversation with anybody, even my mom, about Christmas gifts without the term supply chains coming up. So her name is Swan, and she'll be sharing with us an overview on how the supply chain process works, because it's a lot more complex, and how COVID has changed what that looks like. So please join us November 15th. I'll be sending out an invite this week for that, and share with anyone in your network who might be interested. It's going to be a good one. All right, so thank you all and have a great week.
Have a great week, everyone.